Third time's the charm? Cool. I say that because this is actually the third time I've started recording video with my GoPro, and it is shut off like 2 seconds in. Just shut off. No explanation why. So if you hear any humming in the background, it's because my GoPro is leaning up against my 3D printer. My 3D printer is currently printing parts. That's not where that drill bit goes, but okay. So I did 2 videos last week, kind of talking about some combat robot stuff, and I talked a little bit about Offbeat here, and I kind of went through some of the revisions and history and everything of it, and how we got to where we are. What I want to talk about now is kind of the future of Offbeat as we continue to, as Robert and I continue to work on this robot and just improve it and make it better and better and better. And one of the first things I want to talk about is our new weapon. So before we can talk about the new weapon, though, I kind of want to show our old weapons. So this is a combat-used titanium tri-bar spinner now. It's asymmetric in that this arm is longer than these 2 arms, and the reason for this is, and Robert did a whole bunch of math, it's to combat the moment of instability. I believe that's a mathematical term, but basically when you have something spinning, it's going to want to periodically flip over. If there's a really cool video on YouTube about this where you see an astronaut and he has this T-handle, he's on the International Space Station, this T-handle looking thing. It looks almost like this. He slaps it like this so it's spinning. It unscrews from the wall and it floats out. And as it's still spinning, it periodically, it's spinning around this axis, will flip. So it's still spinning around the same axis, but the one off-weight side of it is opposite side, and it just flips. The way Robert designed this blade, the shape of it and the size and the weight and the balance and everything, it doesn't do that. In fact, if you see anytime Offbeat does get launched into the air, as long as the weapon is spinning, as long as that weapon is spinning like this, Offbeat stays pretty level. In fact, one of our fights, it got stuck like this because the weapon was spinning, and it balanced the robot on just 2 wheels, just sitting there. And I solved that problem by shutting off the weapon. I probably could have drove in reverse and torqued the robot forward, and it would have landed back like that. But I shut the weapon off, and the robot fell backwards. So, yeah, a lot of thought went into the shape of this weapon to make it stable and powerful. But this is heavy. Not as heavy as compared to our AR-500 one. Now, for most of our fights in Arizona, when we started in July, we were running this titanium one. This specific titanium one. You can see it's all chewed up here. And we actually switched to we have a second titanium one. We switched to that one. Then we weighed ourselves. I had changed up the weight, or the magnetic configuration. I'd only put magnets in the front wheels and not the back wheels. We realized we had enough weight. We also had a new a frame that was slightly lighter, and slightly lighter weapon motor. So we were able to actually run our AR-500 weapon. And I can't find the specific fight-used one. It's laying around here somewhere. But it worked pretty well. But these are both heavy. So Robert then went back, and part of the redesign when we switched to the bearings in here, we switched from the bushings to the bearing for our weapon drive, we had to make these 3 holes here for the mounting shaft closer together because the center shaft was smaller now. So Robert came up with this. Cut these nice weight reduction holes in, saves a ton of weight. So we only had to make AR-500 versions of these. If you look, you can kind of see, if you don't know, maybe it's a little easier to tell, you can see that this curve is a little longer than this curve. That's because this arm actually bent right here. Right here in the middle section. And you can see this is pretty well chewed. It went through 3 fights during Sin City Street Fights. This one went through... no, this one didn't go through 3 fights. This one only went through 2 fights. My first fight with Wumbo, and I noticed that this arm was severely bent from a couple impacts in the wall. I switched... That was the first one. I switched to this one here, which I then fought twice was against Sandstorm, and these are mostly bent by just Sandstorm, getting hit against Sandstorm. I think we had a few hits with the wall on this one, but... And then maybe the final fight I did where I beat up a hammer probably bent this too. But Robert immediately recognized that this needs to be thicker. So he just designed, and I just today, from Sencut Send, got this new spinner. This thing is mean looking. It still has that tri-bar shape of the old spinners, but it thickens up this a little bit more, and we have this more open space here. It's also made of a little bit thinner AR500. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera. It's a little thinner, so these are much lighter. Massive weight savings. I still have one project. I have some finishing I have to do on these myself. I know Sencut Send will do countersinking and all that. We just didn't order it because we catted these up, and then I came up with the idea of countersinks. So I gotta countersink these holes. I have somewhere around here. Here they are. And I have some new bolts that are flat countersunk bolts. They'll slide through there, and then we'll countersink those holes, and they should sit, when all's said and done, nice and flush. And what that's going to allow me to do is have the weapon, a spacer, a thrust bearing on top of it, then the rest of the robot. And that's going to give me a lot more space between the bottom of the robot and the weapon. So we'll hopefully solve the problem of, offbeat chewing on the bottom of itself. And this will also get the weapon even closer to the ground, so if people have long, wedgy forks, I'm going to eat them. So yeah, I already have one on here just kind of as a test fit to make sure it was going to fit and work and weigh in and everything, and it's so nice. And those bearings make this thing spin so nice. And again, there is no battery in this robot. There is no mechanical connection between the weapon motor and the weapon itself, so that robot cannot function. So I have no worries about spinning the weapon. And when I'm not working on the robot, I have this little desk, this little vice grip right here. I keep it clamped in right here like this. Even if the weapon were fully activated, that's the extent of the rotation. And then I actually have this clamped down enough it's not going to go anywhere. And this is kind of how I hold the robot in when I'm working on the wheels, mounting the weapon, mounting the front plate. If I'm doing anything on the inside of the robot, I've already got everything taken off anyways. And then I have my big C clamp for when we are taking it to around, from the pits to the fighting field. Now, one thing that we're working on right now are these TPU and titanium 3D printed wood cleat wheels. Now, I think Robert's got some revisions to make. He took a break, took some time, and studied the CAD file, and he saw that there were collisions between the wheels. I'll explain as soon as I finish putting this back together. This is just kind of a light mock-up. This thick white piece here, it's actually two pieces. There's this thin ring here that's will be made of titanium. Right now it's just PLA for testing. And then the screws hold it in. These screws will actually be long enough that they'll go all the way through this piece, through this other ring, and then into the TPU wheel. And if I can get this on here. The center piece here will actually be TPU as well. And I'll probably print that in like red, just to kind of give it that color and contrast. But these are our wood cleat wheels for if we ever have to fight on a wooden floor. These actually look really cool. They are slightly lighter than our magnetic wheels, so we're saving even more weight there. We're actually planning on doing a bigger, longer... we have our front wedge here. This is an unused one. We're planning on extending this even further to go all the way to the back wheels, and then maybe even wrap part way around the back. So it'll just be a metal hoop that just slips around the robot, which that'll be great. That'll be like a super ton extra armor. The next version of Offbeat also part of the wood floor design modifications, like these cleated wheels. We're getting rid of this bottom plate, and it's actually all going to be, the bottom's all going to be a part of the 3D printed nylon. And then we'll only have the top plate to worry about. So I'll probably get a couple of more top plates ordered up, painted up, put some cool stickers on, and Offbeat will be ready to go. And then I have to print more of these wheels. And once I do that, and then we're also upgrading our weapon motor. It's a 660 kV motor that we have right now, and we're upgrading it to 1700 kV. I did the math, and running our current weapon at full speed, we're probably hitting close to the same amount of kinetic energy at the tip as a .45 handgun bullet. The new weapon motor and new weapon, the RPMs, will be much higher. The impact energy will be much, much closer to a 50 caliber gun. If your robot can't survive getting shot by a Desert Eagle, you probably won't survive fighting me. At the same time, my robot also has to survive getting hit that hard, so we'll see, Not trying to talk up a big game or anything, but I'm just like, oh, my robot's gonna hit hard. Oh boy. It's terrifying. So yeah, new weapon motor, new frame, new wheels. Offbeat has come a long way in a year. Oh, one more thing I want to do. I'm actually going to clean up these weapons. I'm going to paint them. I'm going to paint them with red paint, either red or orange paint to match the red and orange and black. I'm trying to actually go with red and black as our color scheme. I didn't have any red paint when I painted up the front plows. I just had orange, so I did orange. I'll probably get some red paint and paint these red, and paint the new plows red as well. Other robots I'm working on. I'm working on 2 robots. And I'm sitting there saying that oh boy, I'm working on 2 whole robots. It's like, there's people who are working 12 robots. I got Norwalk Havoc on over there, and it's like, damn, boys, you guys got 12 robots. This is probably the funniest, silliest thing that came out of this week. I was joking a little bit last week on the Southern California TAC Robotics Discord about building a ant weight, or even jokingly fairy weight version of Offbeat. And Wes from I all of a sudden forget what team he's on, his own team. But Wes made up this CAD file for a 150 gram fairy weight version of Offbeat. Look at it. It will be running, right now, these are all the parts I have for it. This is everything I have for it. I have one more part that I need to 3D print, which is the plate that actually holds the weapon to the weapon motor. And that's it. I might also 3D print some different shafts for the axles. Might. We'll see. It'll actually be running N10 motors. These are N20s. I have some N10s on order. And it'll be running a Malenki all-in-one controller. And then LipoSafe bag with all my lipos in it. A tiny little 2S battery. And it's a tiny little Offbeat. It's so ridiculous. Like, if I take big Offbeat here and I put it next to it, or behind it like this, it's dumb. It's dumb and I love it. Some things I need to do. Right now I'm 3D printing everything. I 3D printed these gears. These gears and these wheels are the final versions of the wheels. The wheels even have little pockets to put magnets in. So this will probably have magnetic wheels depending on the overall weight of the robot. I have the main frame is printed out of TPU. It's pretty flexible, but I think once I put the screws in to hold the top and bottom plate on, it'll make it more rigid. These top and bottom plates, what's nice is they're interchangeable, so I only have to really get one of them. But I'm actually going to get these cut from by Suncut Send out of carbon fiber. And then this is the weapon spinner. Now, I don't know if it has the same math going into it that 3-pound Offbeat has, But this version of Offbeat, which I have been jokingly, and it's probably what its name will actually be, calling it Diet Offbeat, because I think that's silly. But this will actually be a titanium weapon, but it'll be about that thick. So this is the weapon spinner it'll have. It's actually, the way it works is it sits in part of the brushless motor, and then there's a cap that sits here that holds this to the brushless motor. That stuff is on order, or that cap is what I have to print. The electronics are on order. Once I get this test version of the robot running, then I will order the Sencut Send carbon fiber top plates and the titanium weapon. However, the only competition that I have that I would be going with this version of Offbeat, Diet Offbeat, is in January, which also happens to be the same time, or not, it's not the same time, but it's very close to the same time as Norwalk Havoc. Right now, Norwalk Havoc Robot League in Norwalk, Connecticut is probably one of the biggest competitions for combat robots outside of BattleBots. And actually, I would argue it's even bigger than BattleBots itself. And Robert and I, my teammate Robert and I, we have kind of been back and forth hemming and hawing about going, and then I decided I wasn't going to go. Or we wanted to go we wanted to go this year, and then we found out that their January event is New Year, New Robots. It's all new robots. And after competing at Sin City Street Fights and beating Sandstorm and beating Wumbo, though, I feel like Wumbo would have won that fight had his wheel not come off. Because he probably would have ripped my weapon off. Or ripped my weapon belt. Anyways. More broken pieces. Anyways, we were kind of back and forth. Robert thinks that Offbeat could very well be a big contender for January Norwalk. My concern is January Norwalk. It's expensive to go out there. It's you know, a couple $100 to fly, a couple $100 for an airport, and then food and airport, a couple $100 for the flight, a couple $100 for the hotel. Entry fee is actually pretty cheap to get into Norwalk Havoc. But it's sounding very much like we'll be going. In fact, this video is coming out on Monday. It is Saturday. I record these videos on Saturday. Probably by Monday, by the time this video comes out, I will have decided whether or not I'm going to Norwalk Havoc or not. And yeah. I'm excited. I want to go. It's just a matter of, do I have the money to go or not? And we're talking about splitting the cost of the hotel, so it'll be cheaper for everybody. Then that means I only have to cover the full cost of flying. There's a lot of logistics we've got to figure out. I will probably, and if you're watching this on YouTube and you see it in the description below, if it's there in the description below, cool. If it's not, then obviously I decided not to do it. But I'll probably put a link to where you can chuck a couple bucks my way, and then I can use that to pay for the flight or whatever. I hate getting into like Twitch or YouTube and being like, hey, donate to this. Give me money so I can go do thing. If I was like on a big BattleBots team, well, if I was on a big BattleBots team, then yeah, I would totally be like, hey, support my whole team. But really, it would just be supporting me going. And I don't make nearly enough content, I think, to justify or warrant it. So, yeah, probably won't have that. Yes?
Are you recording something?
I am recording something.
Oh shit.
I can always edit this part out.
Okay.
I hate editing, but I can edit this part out.
I just want to make myself some food.
Okay, well...
How much longer do you need?
No, I mean, I was done with it anyway, so, I mean... Yeah, thanks for watching. I might do more videos like this. I don't know. We'll see. Laters.